Welcome back. What's up, felines, to another good episode of Comedians in Bed. And this is a place where comedians can be comedians. I don't really know what that means, but here we are. And we have the man of the city, the one that just set the whole city ablaze, not just this year, but for several years, probably ever since I've been in the comedy game for my short period of time. And I'm so glad that we have a chance to talk to him today. I hope you guys learn something. I hope you guys take down notes because I think this interview is going to be very beneficial to you guys. But he's no other the great, the one and only. Let's give it up for Walker Evans, everybody. I want to say you may be the second one, or you may be the first one that is actually not a comedian on the show.
Sweet. I was going to say, am I
Or do you
am I breaking the norm of your podcast?
comedian fan, comedian enthusiast? It all counts. We're all family. Walker, how are you doing today?
I'm great, and thank you for that very honoring introduction. I feel like there's a lot to live up to now that you've kind of set the bar pretty high, but I'll do my best to clear it.
Man, a couple of months ago, whenever this airs, a few months ago, Columbus had its first Columbus Comedy Festival, and that was due to you and your lovely wife. You guys, it started and it finished, so that to me is a success. So let's give another round of applause. Yes. Um, I want to start with first of all, what do you do? Because I feel like you're a journalist, but then again, you're like a boss, you're like a CEO. You wear a lot of hats. Like, what do you do for the people of that's watching the show that's not from Columbus that is watching this?
Sure, yeah. So, so my wife and I founded ColumbusUnderground.com. It's a local news publication here in Columbus. We launched it originally kind of as a fun side project back in 2001. So it's been around for going on 24 years, which feels pretty insane to say out loud. Uh, Over time, it kind of grew from sort of a hobby into a part-time business into a full-time business. I've been doing it full-time since '07, so trying to do the fast math, close to 18 years, 17 years. Um, and my wife has been doing it full time since 2010, so 14 years for her. It's just something we were really passionate about at the time, and it's as it's grown, we've been able to hire actual writers, people with journalism degrees,
Yeah,
whereas
yeah,
I am a journalist just by practice.
yeah.
But we are still a small team. There's like 8 of us in the office. We have a full time events director. We do some events production. So shout out to Danielle Hackworth, who the comedy festival and all of our other events wouldn't be possible without her. We have a couple sales associates. We have a couple writers. We've got a whole slew of freelancers who just kind of work part time as well. But yeah, we're a small and mighty team, and so anyone you could say CEO or the boss or whatever, but like in a small team, you end up doing a little bit of everything. So if the office needs vacuumed, I'm usually the one doing that.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun time.
What got you into journalism and writing? I don't think I told you I can not just because I do this. I still consider myself a journalist because I used to. I don't think I told you. I used to very briefly. I used to be a sports and TV, sports and news reporter for a local news station down in Texas. So, what got you into journalism and writing?
I think just seeing and I don't think this is anything against Columbus. I think this is a national problem where a lot of the local news media, if you turn on the TV news at night, it's a lot of just like crime, sports, weather, car crashes, and not much else. And there's actually a lot of really cool things going on in Columbus. So it spawned originally seeing a need in the community to cover little stores opening and pointing out cool places to go for happy hour and where new art exhibitions were happening or stand-up comedy or different fun things around the city. We were 21 years old when we started it, so it was very entertainment focused. Um, but as it grew and as we started to fall more in love with the city, we started to follow like what's going on at this commission meeting down in Drummond Village, or what's this new bike lane project in Clintonville. So it's grown over the years, but it kind of, I guess, the interest in journalism kind of just spawned out of seeing a lack of things that we were interested covered in the traditional media. Obviously, that landscape has changed. The Dispatch does a pretty good job of things. Business First does a great job with development coverage. So a lot's changed since then, but we've carved out a nice little niche for ourselves, I think.
What job were you doing when you first started this that made you eventually come to doing this full time?
Yeah. Well, my background is in more of the technical side of things. So I was doing a lot of freelance, like web design, web development, graphic design, some video editing. I graduated from a program at Columbus State called Interactive Multimedia Technology. I don't know if that's what the program's still called. I think it's changed names a couple times, but it's sort of a jack of all trades. Learn some Photoshop, learn some, Final Cut Pro, learn how to do a little bit of everything so that you can enter the workforce and be able to kind of slot into a lot of different things. So my background is more on that side. I did take some technical writing classes, but my wife was an English major with a business degree, so she's kind of the other side of things. So for us, we kind of both complement each other pretty well in terms of our skill sets.
And
Oh,
that's the
I
thing.
guess to answer your question though, I was going to
Go
say
ahead.
I was doing some freelance work, but I worked for a printing company down in Grove City doing like page layout and page design stuff. After that, I worked for a very small niche newspaper, again in like the production side, so like page layouts and graphic design, called the Daily Reporter here in Columbus. I'm not sure if it's still around. It's more like a legal news sort of thing. Um, but I wasn't doing journalism before Columbus Underground.
And that's the thing about marriage. You got to find somebody to your yin to your yang. Like I'm short and
Yeah,
small. So I would want somebody that's tall and big. Like you guys complement
yeah,
each other perfectly.
yeah.
Okay. So
Get those things off the top shelf at the grocery store for you.
no, it's a struggle for real. Like it really. I have a what's these things called? And my mind just went blank. One of these little smoke detectors. It's just hanging. I
Hmm.
can't get it back up because I can't reach it even when I get in a chair. So
Okay,
it's just hanging there. So that's what that is.
nice.
But how was that journey from going to starting it as a hobby to part time to full time, which is similar to what comics do when they first start out their entertainment career?
Yeah. I mean, it wasn't really planned. I will say in our case, we started what we're doing because it was just something kind of fun to do. It wasn't until a few years in that we even got approached by someone who said, I want to buy some advertising. And we're like, oh, I guess we should register a business and set up an ad platform and kind of take those steps. So it was very non-linear and non-traditional. There wasn't a lot of examples for us to follow. We're just kind of flying by the seat of our pants. Um, and our story is not a good one to emulate, I will say, because we kind of got it to the point where it felt safe enough to maybe make the leap. I was, doing it part time. I was starting to make a little bit of money and kind of thinking, oh, if I go full time, I can make a little more money, but it wasn't really 100% there. So there was a little bit of a blind leap of faith. But we also had our first child on the way. We'd gotten married and pregnant, and we're in the process of buying a house. And we kind of said, it's never going to get any easier. We got to just do this now. So we took that full leap off the cliff with our first kid on the way. So it was very scary and very intimidating, but we've always lived pretty frugally. We don't have a lot of like crazy expenses. We didn't go buy like a crazy expensive house or car. So we kind of put what money we had back into getting the business started and kind of cut corners where we could to make things work financially. And it, a lot of long hours, a lot of long nights, a lot of weekends you got to give up to make it work. But yeah, it's so far so good.
I realized my generation, they're pretty much scared to take leaps. They just want everything to already be set in stone, which is why my engagement failed. So, how did you guys stick together in that time period? Like, what was it? You guys are starting a family. You got a house. You guys are going full time on a business. What was that like with you guys personally, as far as your relationship to stay grounded? Because if you guys didn't, then you guys wouldn't be here today with your business.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think we had a lot of shared interests and shared values from the beginning. And I think it was also just the fact that we got started on this so soon.
Mhm.
Like I talk to friends and they're like, I can't imagine working with my spouse and then going home and being with my spouse all day. They're like, how do you do it? And it's like, well, we've been doing it forever. Like we don't know anything else at this point.
Right.
So some of it is just, building around those routines. But all that's to say, it's not easy. We still argue about stuff. We still fight about stuff. You know,
Yeah. Yeah.
I
How
just,
did
I
you?
guess trying to communicating is the short answer, I guess.
It is key. It is key.
Yeah.
It's becoming a lost art because of text messages. Like people feel like
Yeah.
they can read your mind through text. That's crazy. But
Right.
when did you become, or have you always been a comedy fan?
Yeah, I mean, pretty much forever, I guess, when you go back to like childhood and growing up watching everything from, I was born in 1980, so like SNL in the 90s would have been, the Mike Myers, Dana Carvey, into like the Will Ferrell eras. But watching a lot of dumb stuff on MTV, Beavis and Butthead, and the state. I was really excited to
Yeah.
have Michael Ian Black in the festival this year because the state was pretty transformational for me. And then into Adult Swim, watching all kinds of crazy stuff and early internet humor. But stand-up comedy specifically, my wife and I have always been fans. We used to go out to a lot of shows before we had kids, so we go out on dates in kind of like the early to mid 2000s. We saw a lot of acts, both at the Funny Bone out of Easton. I remember seeing a Great Lewis Black show there, probably in like 2003 or something. We my favorite story to sort of like half brag, half tell is we got engaged in 2004 up at Niagara Falls. We did a trip up there, got engaged, and then Anne, my wife, saw online that one of our favorite comedians was going to be in Cleveland, kind of on our way back. So we bought tickets. We drove from Niagara Falls to Cleveland before even coming back to Columbus and saw Mitch Hedberg, and that was
Okay.
about maybe 6 months before he had passed away. So we're happy
Oh,
to be able to see him, but yeah, we saw Bob Saget in Cincinnati, back around 2005, 2006. But once we had kids, we kind of went out less. So kind of
mhm.
our limit to comedy shows started to wane, in kind of 2008 to 2012. And then, of course, the pandemic hit and everything shut down. So no one was watching anything. But I really feel that, like, since the pandemic, because it's completely over, right? 100%. No one's had COVID
Yeah.
since. Uh, um, just seeing the attic open, seeing hashtag open, seeing Don't Tell do so well. Like there's so many new opportunities. And as a fan, I felt like really re-energized over the past 2 years. Like this is really cool just to be able to see more locals with more opportunities. Because I've never really been a big open mic watcher.
Mhm.
I just go to shows and not to the open mics. And I think, 15 years ago in Columbus, it was either Funny Bone or open mics, and there wasn't a ton in between.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Going to those comedy shows earlier on in your relationship with your wife, did you guys have a sense that you would somehow, some way, be involved more in comedy, or were you just like, we're just fans? Like, did you kind of see yourself being here, or was there talks like, what should we do with this, or was it just like a hobby of your guys?
I mean, we were just fans. We did interview people on Columbus Underground. So there are comedy articles, from 10, 12 years ago that
Yeah.
either we wrote or she had written. And, we had a couple of friends in the scene. A lot of the folks that we were fans of and would watch have kind of moved on. And we tried to bring some of them back for the festival. Laura Sanders was here. Travis Irvine, obviously, he comes and goes, but he's kind of an old timer at this point. Um, wasn't able to get Samuk Torgokar. I don't know if you
Mhm.
remember him or not, kind of in the scene. So, we would write articles about some of these folks to publish and shine a spotlight on them, the same way we do for local bands or local, painters, visual artists. Um, but never really thought about an event until the past, year and a half or so.
Um, now, so I've been doing this for 5 years, next 5 years and a couple 2 days, but I would say
Nice.
probably,
Happy
yeah,
anniversary.
I appreciate it. I don't think I paid attention my first year. Yeah, because I started and then COVID happened, so nothing was moving. But
Right.
Probably like year two, maybe year three. You kind of set the comedy scene ablaze with the top 10 list, and everybody was mad and heated and
Yeah,
everything. But to be honest, if you look back, that's kind of what kicked off kind of the boom of people just talking and paying attention. So
yeah,
when you did that and you heard mumbles and stuff like that, were you like, oh shoot, maybe we shouldn't have did that, or you stood 10 toes down and was like, F it, this is how I feel, because everyone has their own
yeah.
list.
Yeah, so our list, and we've been publishing these, I think, for about 12 years. We do every year. That there's one going on right now. It's open right now for people. Well, I guess at the time this is published, it's probably closed. But every year at the end of the year, we publish a survey. We survey our readers and say, name the best stuff of the year: best restaurant, best pizza, best artist, best comedian, best yada yada. And every year we try to add some new categories, delete some categories, some kind of come and go, just kind of depending on the response. Because everyone
Mhm.
will fill out best pizza. Everyone and their brother will fill out best pizza. You look at like best spa, and it had
Yeah.
like 10% of people like answer that question. So we try to just change it up a little bit. And so I think comedian is one that's like fallen off or on over the years.
Mhm.
Um, for whatever reason, 2 years ago or something, that the list, people really strongly reacted to it. I really didn't think too much of it. One, because it's not my personal list, and I've tried
Yeah.
to make sure people know this. Like 1,000 of our readers fill this thing out. Last time I looked, it was like over 800 already. So this is
Yeah.
just a popularity contest of people in the
All right.
city, and whoever gets the most of their friends to go vote for them, you know, wins a lot of categories or places high on the list. So anyone that sees it as either my personal list is wrong or sees it
Mhm.
as anything other than a popularity contest, right? Like it's not ranking material submitted by an expert panel of judges or anything like
Right.
that. And as you know, like comedy is so subjective. Like your favorite comedian, my favorite comedian could be two wildly different people, both super talented, and it's just a matter of taste. So the thing I've told people, and shout out to Henry Allen, who I think took it most personally out of everybody because he's been on the ninth best comedian, uh, run all year long. Uh, he's a friend, and it's funny, and we've chatted about this a lot. But uh, no one takes it more seriously, these lists, than like the pizza people or the burger people or the taco people. So uh, yeah, as mad as any comedian gets, like you go on like the Pizza Connoisseurs of Columbus Facebook page, and they're ready to like set our business on fire because we didn't name our favorite pizza spot. It's pretty wild, but I mean, it gets people talking, it gets people interested, it gets people excited, even if they're like a little bit upset. Then they're going to vote next year, and that's good for
Yeah.
everybody.
I was thinking about that. Like some good news could be good news. It probably definitely brought more attention to your to Columbus Underground, definitely from a comedic standpoint. But I'm happy that you did it, or you guys do it, just in general, just because you get to see how people react to it. You could either be mad about it,
Sure,
or
yeah.
do something about it and be better, or whatever the case might be. But
Yeah.
I think with that, I think it put maybe because I just do comedy, but I think it put a spotlight on Columbus comedy, and then that lead us to the Columbus Comedy Fest, or did it come about in a different way?
um No, so I'm trying to think of the full timeline here now. So last spring, so this would have been like the spring of 2022,
Mhm.
I ran into Travis Haywisher out on the bike trail. We're both riding bikes, and I ran into him, and I was kind of saying that, like, is it just me, or does it feel like local comedy is doing really well right now? Like, I see these opportunities, and I see like people blowing up on social media, like clips are going viral, and new venues are opening. And he's been doing it for 20 years, and he said something along the lines of, I'm paraphrasing, like, dude, this is the best that it's ever been. I think my question was, is it back to where it was before COVID? He's like, no, 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 this is beyond that. Like, it's really, really good right now. I'm like, oh, that's really cool and interesting. And so I wrote up a piece that was published last summer. I interviewed 10 different people, from comedy producers to comedians to venue owners, just kind of getting like
Mhm.
the lay of the land and doing kind of a big update, talking to everyone from the funny bone to hashtag and everyone in between. Um, and started thinking about a festival. Was talking with Bo at the Attic, who had kind of mentioned that they were interested in doing something. Um, those conversations started to kind of fall by the wayside as Bo wanted to sort of refocus on the Attic specifically and not on producing a special event, which is totally fair because an event is a big undertaking. So I sort of said, well, can we take it over? Can we take over the idea? We'll include everyone in it, but let us sort of like do it our way and blow something up and try and do something big. And so it was last October, it was right about a year ago. I scheduled a meeting and tried to get everybody there. Dustin at the Funny Bone, Bo, Hannah. I had either Simon or Peter. I think Peter from Don't Tell was there. Terrence Davis, the folks from The Nest, Tara and Rance. Really got everyone together and said, what if we create this sort of hybrid event where Columbus Underground is running the overall sort of festival, and we'll program some of the events ourselves, but everyone else can kind of do their own things at their own venue, their own ways, and we won't tell you how to do anything, nor will we take any money from your shows, but we'll promote it all as one big festival. We all kind of work together, just collective marketing, rising tides, and we marketed it all as one big event. And everyone was like, "Sure, sounds good. Nothing to lose. Let's give it a shot." And so that's really what kind of kicked it off. Just seeing the scene explode, and then those early conversations with Bo that kind of went into this direction. That's
What
kind of the genesis.
how did you how did you get so many, probably just from relationships, but how did you get so many like like sponsors? Because when we put out the flyer, there were so many high profile sponsors. Like, so basically, let me back up. How, like,
Sure.
without giving too much detail, like how did you get this from ground zero to like night one? Like, how did we get like the sponsors and like everything? Because it was a lot
Yeah.
of moving parts, and it all worked. From what I can see, it all worked together well. So how did we create a festival?
A lot of sitting around, brainstorming ideas, making spreadsheets, kind of just throwing together, securing venues was kind of the first thing, making sure that we had the venues that we wanted, figuring out what the seating capacities would look like, figuring out what the ticket price should be, and then sort of building a budget backwards from there to figure out like how much money we could devote to bringing in some of the bigger headliners that wanted guarantees, as well as they want travel expenses. Some of them wanted hotels, some of them didn't. Just kind of starting from square one to figure all that sort of stuff out, and then building advertising packages around it for sponsorships and things like that. For us, this wasn't really our first rodeo. We've been doing I'm rocking the t-shirt today, the Columbus Coffee Festival.
Okay.
We just had that event last weekend. It was our ninth annual, and that event was one that started the first year we did it. We set it at 1,000 tickets and sold out, and it's gotten bigger and bigger and bigger every year. So this year we had just over 9,000 people there. Um, so we've got some experience with how to build a larger scale event, but this was a new one because you have to factor in flights and hotels and more personal logistics. So it's a different type of stress around that.
Yeah, yeah,
Sorry, does that answer your question? I feel like I'm kind of rambling
yeah,
here a
yeah,
bit.
yeah. No, I did. No, I did.
Yeah,
I,
yeah,
I'm not gonna lie. Like some of the headliners, I was honestly like shocked. I was like, okay, Jordan Rock, and then I was even
yeah,
more shocked on like Sam J, and then
yeah.
it's like so like, when you got some of these people, were you like, how did you choose like what headliner did you want, or did you just like choose random people? And then, like, to be honest, were you like nervous to ask, because like this was like your first time doing it? Nobody knows what this festival is. Like, were you nervous to ask?
Uh, sure. Yeah. Part of it was, anytime you're doing anything that's outside of your comfort zone, you feel like a little nervous. And, some of the headliners like Fumi Abe, you
Mhm.
just reach out, like his contact info is his Gmail address. So I just reached out to him directly. So that was a very like one-on-one conversation. A lot of the others like Sam J have agents. So you're talking to an agent in Los Angeles or New York. and you're kind of nervous because like they're going to be using lingo that I'm not familiar with, entertainment contracts with a Los Angeles talent rep, and you don't want to come into it seeming like an amateur, Um, but once you get over that initial anxiety and just reach out and talk to people, you kind of quickly realize like, oh, they're just doing a job, which is to get their comedian on stage and get them paid. So like we're all just trying to do a job at the end of the day, and it's not really as intimidating as you might think that it would be. Um, we put together a list. Danielle and I, a couple others in the office, but it's mostly Danielle and I, just putting together one big list of like 500 of our favorite comedians, from the biggest names in the business to like the smallest unknown locals that we just love. Um, and kind of started going from there. And I showed that list to Stroop out at the Funny Bone, and he pretty quickly went like, "This person's going to want $30,000. This person's going to want $50,000." Like, helped us eliminate, so we wouldn't embarrass ourselves by asking
Hmm.
the biggest of the big. But really, kind of going down to the folks that we thought we could, fit into the right venues and had the budget for, and just started making offers. And some of them people came back and accepted it right away, and others are like, "Well, could I get a little bit more money, or could I get this stipulation?" And we made the decision of whether it was within our wheelhouse or not. So, um, yeah.
So I couldn't make it, of course, to every show, but two shows that were my favorite were the first one was Jordan Rock, because
Hmm.
his writing was just very, very incredible. And I think if my memory serves me correctly, I don't know what shoes I had on that day. That's highly important, but I was taller than him that day. So I was real happy about that. But the other one, which I was very tired and I didn't want to go, but I was like, I have to go because I am a fan of his. I actually became a fan of his through just listening to him on a podcast that sometimes he's featured on, which is called Daddy Issues, and that's Jeremiah Watkins.
Oh
And
yeah,
when we went in there, it wasn't it wasn't what I expected. Not just because it wasn't that many people there, but it was just like, okay, I don't think I've ever saw a show be modified like that in a way. And to be quite honest with you, I honestly liked it better that way. It felt more exclusive. It felt more
yeah,
like IP type stuff. And then being a comic in general, it is so hard to make other comics laugh. Now, granted, he's been doing this for years, but it
yeah.
was just very, 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 very great. Like, so what show or yeah, like what show did you like probably enjoy the most, or was like, okay, this probably didn't turn out how I wanted to, but it turned out better than what I wanted it to?
Yeah. Um, well, overall, I watched very little comedy that week. I was
Mhm.
mostly running around behind the scenes, just
Yeah.
sweating and trying not to throw up the whole time. Uh, but I did watch the Jeremiah Watkins show, that final show on Sunday night, and we kind of learned that most people that wanted to see him came to the Saturday matinee show that he did, the stand up on the spot show. So there wasn't as much of an appetite for the second show on Sunday night. So lesson learned on our part. But it was a master class, like you said, in watching someone take, because I think there were only like 18 tickets or something like that. But he pushed all the chairs up to the front, put chairs on the stage. Like watching him take a bad situation and turn it into something magical was like amazing, just to like bear witness to and be a part of. And I sat and I watched the show because it was the last one of the night, of the fest, really. Um, and it was just like such an epic closer. And it's a bummer that more people weren't there to see it, but I kind of liked the fact that it was so intimate and wild. And I know that his producer was there and recorded the whole thing. I hope they do something with it. I don't know if they will or not, but it was pretty special. I mean, I popped in and caught pieces and parts of a lot of shows. Michael Ian Black destroyed. I mean, people gave him a standing ovation. At the end, he was great. Ian Fidance was another one. Like his full show, he was just drenched in sweat by the end of it because he was just so animated, like running around the stage and everything. Um, it was great, and it was nice. Just some of the folks, I had a lot of anxiety about bringing these out of towners in, thinking like, I don't want us to look like the dumb Columbus yokels. These are New York people. These are Los Angeles people. This is our first time. I just want to make sure like everything goes right. So I was kind of really built up in my head that any minor detail was going to like reflect poorly upon us. And then once they get there and arrive, they're the most chill. You know, for the large part, everyone was super laid back, just happy to be there. Everyone had a good time, and like that really helped bring me down off of that like frantic anxiety of just sweating about everything. So yeah, it was really nice. Yeah.
Did the headliners from these big cities, did they give you any feedback about like they liked it? Because like they've done plenty of festivals, they've done plenty of shows. So what was their
Yeah.
feedback of participating in something that was first?
I everyone that I talked to seemed to have a really good time. You know, I think we treated them really well. We had a transportation service, which you're aware of. I know you helped with some of the driving, picking people up from the airport, taking them to the hotel, taking them from the hotel to the venue. Sometimes those little details I think can get missed at smaller festivals. And so I think it goes a long way just to make sure people have a good time. We were giving them gift cards to local restaurants, so they weren't just resorting to like door dashing Chipotle or anything like that. Making sure they had a good time while they're here. I know our venues, especially the Key, it's a really cool building and like super nice working with them. Their staff was great, but acoustically, that big room is a challenge. And so we knew that kind of going into it, but we got it for dirt cheap. So we're looking at a new venue for next year for some of those bigger shows. So that was the kind of feedback that we got from people that like acoustically this room doesn't work, but you know, comedians are just happy to have an audience. And I think the really nice thing too, for some of the bigger headliners, like Ian Fidance or Sam J, for example, the people who were there to see their shows were there for them. So like the audience was like tuned in to who they were there to see. And, you know, I think for the comedian showing up into a city they're unfamiliar with and then having an audience that's just like eating out of their hand, it's like it couldn't have gone better for some of those shows.
Yeah, for the Sam J show. There's a lot
Yeah.
of studs and I love studs. So I was very excited when that happened. It's
Yeah.
like studs is here. Real women. I love it. I love it. For the local comedians that's in the scene, what was kind of their feedback? I didn't see too much, but there were some who weren't satisfied with the process. But I don't honestly think they knew the whole process. With comedians, I don't think it's just comedians. A lot of people don't read, so a lot of them just didn't get in or whatever because they didn't read. But just overall, what was kind of like the feedback for that? And before you answer that question, I want to
Sure.
personally say, uh, I don't know if I
You
said this to
hated
you.
all of
I want to personally say, like, thank you for it because it was like a cool experience. I know that for me, the only time I really feel like a real comedian is like when I go to LA or Chicago because it's like those are
Mhm.
comedy cities. So to have my city for a period of time just stop and it's all about in my eyes probably because I took off, but it was all about comedy. I was like, oh shoot, first time in Columbus I ever felt like a real comic. So like for the local comics, like how was your feedback?
Yeah, I mean, the feedback was across the board, and we did do a survey, like an online survey, completely anonymously for performers to fill out to kind of give us like real honest feedback, because we do want that. Um, the general consensus, I think that most everybody had a pretty good time. You know, we know, especially with year one, we're not going to get every little detail right. So, you know, we do want to know where we can improve, and people are very willing to share their opinions on what could go better. Sometimes we have to take that with a little bit of grain of salt because not everyone is familiar with like how everything works in the background. Like, so for example, someone said to me that instead of getting free Mikey's late night slice in the green room, which Mikey's provided, they were a sponsor. They're great to work with. Shout out Mikey's. They would have preferred to not get the pizza, but would have gotten paid more in place of that. And it's like, well, Mikey's wasn't going to give us money ever. They just wanted to give us free pizza to give out. So to it's kind of a false equivalent sort of thing. So like I appreciate that kind of feedback, but it doesn't really go anywhere at the end of the day. So but yeah, I mean, you know, people also express concern. Some of the venues just had a few logistical challenges. The other kind of bigger venue that we booked stuff at was the CPAC, the Columbus Performing Arts Center. That building is kind of starting to fall apart. It needs probably like a $10 million renovation. And I think the city's aware of that. And I've had conversations with city council members about some money needs to be invested in that building. Like, I don't really want to go back there again. It was cheap to use. They were really nice to work with, but just the physical facilities needs a lot of work. So, yeah, so some of that sort of stuff. We try to change some things up. A lot of times with, I think kind of the biggest point of contention was that a lot of comedy festivals, only headliners get paid. If you like apply to be a part of the festival and you get accepted, you're getting exposure. You're not getting any kind of pay out of it. Usually you have to pay for your own travel, you have to pay for your own hotel. Like if you were to go do like the Indiana Comedy Festival. So we decided to flip it around and say everybody is going to get paid. Even if you're on stage for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, we want to pay you something. And so we negotiated contracts with everybody. In lieu of that, we didn't give everybody like all of the perks that you would get. Like if you went to a festival, they might give you a free t-shirt. They might give you free entry to some shows, that sort of stuff. And we said, no, we want to pay you instead. And so, again, we were very transparent about this. We were upfront about all this. We sent emails. And like you said, not everybody reads all the emails. And so once the festival was underway, some people were like, what do you mean I don't get to go into every single show that I want for free? And it's like, well, if you go to Ty's show for free, that's a ticket that we're not paying him for. And we promised him that we would pay him the tickets. Like, I kind of feel pretty strongly that any kind of creative, whether you're a photographer, an artist, a comedian, any kind of performer, musician, like being paid actual money is the only way to like make the system actually work. You know, if we all just go back to like a barter and trade system, that sounds great in theory, you know, fuck capitalism, everything. But at the end of the day, like you can't pay your rent if you're not making money. And I'd rather
Right,
see you
right.
make money as a comedian and help fulfill those dreams of becoming a full-time sort of thing. So we're trying to nudge in that direction. And I know there's going to be a little bit of pushback, but as long as we're trying to be honest and transparent and communicative about why we're trying to push in that direction, I think we'll kind of get there.
Well, I'll be transparent and I'll say that I hosted one show and I featured for one show. So all in all, I did 20 minutes and I made $130. So I will say thank you for that because that's probably one of the highest I've ever got paid, except for
Sweet.
when I throw my own shows. But
Yeah.
just like not throw my own shows, yeah, and they make $130 for 20 minutes. And I know that my material is not all that. Yeah, I don't know who's complaining, but
Yeah. Well, and
for
again, to be
sure.
fair, like I don't think people were like complaining. They weren't like nagging. They weren't like
Yeah,
being aggressive or anything. It was more of a I'm used to this other thing, and what you're doing is different, and I'm kind of confused by that in the moment. So,
yeah.
um, but yeah, I mean, again, and we gave folks. We said, hey, if you want to go to free show, sign up and do a volunteer shift, and that gets you a free ticket. And I know you helped out with a lot of volunteering, and so we, super appreciative for that. So we gave people a path for that, whether they chose, or had the time to commit to that too, because I know a lot of local comedians have full time jobs and families and all kinds of other commitments.
I honestly volunteered because I felt like it was an opportunity that I could not miss. Now, granted, I get off at 2:30, so I could have not volunteered. Well, I could have worked and still volunteered, but I was like, I felt like personally I needed to step out of my own box and just be more visible and just be more around. And I feel like if the scene is supporting me and showing me love, I felt like it was only granted that I do the same. Because doing a first anything isn't easy. And so I know as comedians, like we beg and we beg and we beg people to come to our shows, but they're so just satisfied with clips. So when anyone shows me support, I'm super grateful for that. Even if I throw a show and only like 5 people come, I'm super grateful for that. So for me, I was like, oh yes, 100%. I'm going to help and volunteer. And I'm also one of my favorite local shows. It was pretty packed in there. I didn't stay the whole time. I forgot why. I think I was just too high. It was Eric Bosso's late night show. That show, I
Oh
was like,
yeah, yeah.
this could be done like every week if possible. I really, really, really like that. With the surveys that you guys got and the feedback that you guys got, what are some of the do's and the don'ts that you're going to act out going forward?
Yeah, so for year 2, I think we pretty quickly realized what we needed to do to make some big improvements, and in the survey, we kind of asked really just trying to get consensus, like, "If this is the direction we go, do you think this will help, yes or no?" And we kinda got really confirmation of what we already know, which is, we swung really big. You know, year 1, we got a lot of sponsors, like, "Let's just swing for the fences and go big." Um, and while it was a success, I think of the shows that Columbus Underground produced, we sold like 2,600 tickets across the board. And with all of the venue partners, I asked for just the bulk ticket number sold for all venues across the board. And it was like 5,500 over the 5 days, which I feel really proud about. You know, to sell over 5,000 tickets in year 1 for anything is like pretty insane. Um, Granted, you know, a lot of those people would have been going to the Funny Bone anyway to see Tony Rock, you know, who was out there for that weekend. So, but it got people talking and thinking about things in a new way. All of that said, you know, we learned pretty quickly that Wednesday is a tough day to get people to go out. Sunday, especially Sunday night, is a tough day to get people to go out. So for year 2, we're talking about maybe one big Thursday kickoff show and then really focusing on Friday and Saturday, maybe doing like a Sunday brunch thing and then just calling it done at like noon or whatever. It'd be a lot less work and stress on our team and volunteers and staff and everybody else as well. Um, Fewer overlapping shows. You know, we tried to have multiple shows happening at the same time, but different comedians and different types of comedy, and thinking that, you know, we could spread people out a little bit. But we got a lot of feedback, people saying like I had to choose between 2 of my favorites that were going on at the same time. So trying to stagger things a little bit more. So we'll probably produce. I say probably. We as Columbus Underground will definitely produce fewer shows and tighten up the schedule, and then rely on our venue partners. You know, if hashtag wants to continue to do like a full, you know, the full set of shows that they did, that's totally on them, and we will promote the hell out of that. Um, but for our sake and our sanity, we'll probably tighten it up and do less shows, but try and get them more full because we had, you know, when you start stretching that thin, you're just stretching audiences then too, and it'd be better just to have everybody all in one room.
Are you thinking about bringing certain headliners back, or is like, okay, we tried this avenue, let's try bigger, let's try different? What is that looking like by chance?
Yeah. I mean, definitely if some want to come back that sold well and did well and were easy to work with, definitely want to have them back. If not year 2, you know, year 3, year 4, year 5. Some of the folks like Saul Churillo, I'm not sure if you saw him. He was in town for a couple of days with Shayna Rabani. And Saul, you know, he had a great time. You know, he's got a pretty big following, but there are like California people. So he's not a big draw here, but he was just excited to be a part of things and kind of told me like, yeah, you guys are building something, you know. He's like, year 5, if you want me to come back, I'll come back. So um, yeah, Damon Darling, his show sold out way in advance. So if Damon wants to do it again and have a bigger room, definitely have Damon back. Um, One of our sponsors was Kappa, the Columbus Association of Performing Arts, which manages all the big theaters downtown. So the Ohio Theater, Palace Theater, Southern Theater, Lincoln, and some others. And they had originally wanted to book a big show in one of their spots because they host comedy, you know, big name comedy shows and their big theaters downtown all the time. But it kind of was starting to come together kind of last minute and it just didn't happen. So we're talking with them, like if we want to do a big Thursday kickoff and go even bigger and have it be at like the Palace Theater or something, we could potentially do that. And that way, not all of that financial risk is directly on us. It's something that they are kind of helping to support. So yeah, maybe for next year we do like one big headliner, and then tighten up the rest of the shows. And I for me, it's really about spotlighting regional and local talent as well, and making sure that really funny people like yourself. And others, you know, you mentioned Eric Basso, Neff Johnson, Henry Allen, Layla Ingalls, Nikki Winkleman, getting these people exposed to people who don't always come out to comedy and letting them know, hey, you can go see Neff, you know, every week.
Mhm.
You can go see Ty's show at hashtag, you know,
Mhm.
every month. Just helping to build that support is a big piece of it. So headliners are important because that's what draws people out. But I just want to
Mhm.
make sure that we're building the local scene in the process too.
So the first night that I volunteered, I think I was telling Josh Ozani, I was like, I'm not gonna lie, probably like 5 years. just from the vibe and like experience, and I was like, probably in 5 years, I could see a big show at like Nationwide Arena just for like doing this whole
Oh
thing. Like,
yeah.
yeah, like I really do. And the reason why I say that is because, like, in the summertime, that's when we have like our festivals. You got the Asian Fest, you got the Raven Jazz Fest, and I can see this being a part of that other festival for that summer weekend thing. And I could really
Mhm.
see a lot of like people catching it on. And I think maybe in a decade or so, like maybe a Columbus comic that was local finally gets some type of shine, and now they're headlining the Palace Theater. I could really see that. So that's really dope. But no, I had fun. Now I know it was kind of hectic for you, but overall, when it's all said and done, were you satisfied with the inaugural Columbus Comedy Festival?
Yeah, yeah. I think by pretty much every metric, it was a success. We got people to come out. We sold tickets. Sponsors were happy. People who attended were happy. Comedians, both local and headliners from out of town, were happy. Um, at the end of the day, we as Columbus Underground didn't really make any money. We kind of just flat broke even on everything, which is tough for us because the reason we do events is to generate money to fund journalism. We don't have a paywall. We don't have a subscription model. We decided years ago to pivot to an event production model. So, like for the coffee festival that we just finished up, that the money that we raise for that event will help to pay journalists to write stories year round. So, it was a lot of work over the past year to put this event together to just like not make a dime when all said and done. So that's the one metric we have to improve for next year. And I think tightening things up, consolidating some things will help achieve that. The other thing too, to I guess to clarify that is that with any first year event, there are some one-time expenses that you probably saw, like the neon signs that we had. Those were
Uh,
like $300 a piece, and we bought six of them. So that
yeah,
was, a several $1,000 investment. We don't have to buy them next year. Like that was a one and
yeah,
done. As long as they don't break, as long as you take good care of them, they'll last for a decade or more. So, um, yeah. So overall success. I think everyone's really happy, and even just hearing little things from folks like talking to Stroop from the Funny Bone, like they're in their own world. They're out there at Easton. They're booking shows across. I think they've got 14, 16 venues all around the country, and that's kind of what they live and breathe and eat all day long. And talking to him and having him out at the Key and having him at CPAC. I think he went to hashtag for the first time ever. Um, Talking to him and hearing him say things like, "Oh, we need to nurture our local comedy community a little better than what we already do." I'm like, that's awesome. That's a huge win right there because we've got a
yeah.
really big player in the scene here through the Funny Bone, and I think kind of reinvigorating, folks like that, just getting people to think about things differently and more collaboratively is just like a win for the scene, in my opinion.
Yeah, yeah. No. Yeah, it was good to see every venue, every top head in the scene like come together. So for anyone
Yeah.
that probably didn't apply last year or anything like that, I know like with any comedy festival, you pay a fee and you submit a tape. What kind of things for people who want to apply for year two? What kind of things are you looking for? And the reason why I'm asking that now is because I tend to try to make tapes around this time of year in the fall
Hmm.
because I mean, festivals they go on all year round, but some of the ones that are in the summer, you got to start the application process in January, all that type of stuff. So for people that is watching this, they want to do apply for year two. What kind of things are you looking for in your comedians?
Yeah, so we had a panel of five judges kind of go through and score all of the videos, and so that created sort of an aggregate score. One thing that we kind of do that's sort of unique is that there's just one application process, and then that feeds into a booking spreadsheet that all of the venues can pull from. So, like shows that Hannah built out at hashtag or that Tara and Rance built at the Nest, we're pulling from this list as well. So. Uh, I just want to say that one thing, it's a $10 fee, and then you get into all of the different venues, which is pretty nice. Um, Me personally, I was just one of the five judges. The things that I look for are confidence, sort of like stage presence and confidence, uniqueness of the jokes. You know, a lot of people kind of default to like very basic kind of stuff. We're looking for like actual bits and material that you can tell are like well written and well rehearsed and refined. Anyone that submits a video that's all like crowd work, I know it's popular and like the algorithm will treat that well, but for a comedy festival, it's like that was one good night of crowd work. You could tank every single other night, and we just got like one little snippet of it. I think we're less concerned about like video quality. A lot of people just shoot like iPhone videos, and the sound isn't great, but that really doesn't matter. It's really about the material, and whether you know you're actually saying something as a comedian that has a differentiator, I guess, than your peers.
Yeah, like I said, I was like that night that you saw me at the attic, I was recording because I'm like, this is gonna be a tape. All right. I'm submitting this. I'm actually
Nice.
gonna I found a festival. I'm like, I don't know, but we'll try. I'm gonna submit for a festival in uh in Canada. So we're gonna see how
Oh,
that
nice.
goes. Yeah, I was like, I found out about it. I was like, yeah, might as well. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But no,
Yeah.
I really,
Which one? Or where in Canada?
it is called. Let me see. It is called the. I found out about it last night, and it is called the Great Canadian Comedy Festival, happening May 4th through May 8th. It
Okay.
says your entry point to the Canadian comedy scene. And it doesn't really say venue, but it just says opportunities to perform at the best comedy clubs, including in Niagara Falls. So it's kind of just seemed like it's just all over the place. But I was like, let's yeah, I was like, let's just swing for the fences and try something different here.
Nice.
So yeah,
I try to follow a lot of comedy festivals on Instagram just to see like what's going on and that sort of thing. So I'll give them a follow.
yeah. I always end the interview with the same three questions. So I'm going to ask you the same thing since you are a comedian enthusiast. Who
Hmm.
is on your Mount Rushmore for comedy?
Is that four? Mount Rushmore's
Yep.
four. Uh, that's a really tough question because I feel the same way about like when people ask you like what's your favorite kind of pizza, and it's like, well, what am I in the mood for? You know, am I in the mood for deep dish? Am I in the mood for New York? Um, Mount Rushmore of comedy. Stand up specific?
It doesn't necessarily. It could be any type of style of comedy. If it's sketch or if it's like alternative comedy, improv, anything,
Hmm.
dead or alive.
Dead or alive? Um, I mean, I feel like the default is to go to like all the classics, the greats, right? The George Carlin, Richard Pryor, folks. I'll stick with being a child of the '90s and what I know. I'd probably put uh, Conan O'Brien for both, you know, writer, performer, everything.
That's the first I've ever got
Um,
Conan. Love Conan. That's the
yeah,
first I've
yeah,
ever.
yeah. And just like what he has meant for the industry as well. And I don't know if you listen to his podcast, the Conan O'Brien Needs a Friend podcast, but it's excellent. It's really it's fun.
I don't, but I'm
Um,
gonna be a big nerd real quick. I used to
yeah.
watch his Big Night Show.
Oh yeah, yeah. No, I
I
watched it
loved it.
plenty. Yeah, yeah. The podcast is a good continuation of that. It's like long form interviews with people, and there's some really good ones. Um,
Okay.
I would probably say Marin, Mark Marin would be up there as well. Um, God, this is such a tough question. Uh, is it cheating to say Mr. Show because that's both Bob Odenkirk and David Cross?
No,
I guess David Cross is more the stand up um, guy, and then who's number four? Uh, I'll go with another easy answer and say John Stewart.
Okay, okay. I like
Yeah,
the list. I like the list.
yeah.
What
I feel
else?
bad that it's for men. It's for white men, but Mount Rushmore is also for white men. So I'm on brand.
I feel like the people that name their list and they'll be like, I feel bad, and they'll finish the sentence. I feel like they really care. So
Yeah,
it's so fine.
yeah. But
um,
I will say right now, like up and coming comedians, like people who are really like building up steam. We just went and saw Jordan Jensen at the Funny Bone. Like she was on my bucket list. I wanted to have her at the festival, but she wasn't available. Her and Ian Fidance, the podcast they do is insane and hilarious. Just went and saw Sam Talent at the Attic a couple months ago. At this point, Sam he was on my bucket list to see. I'd never seen him perform live before. He was insane. Watching Mark Normand earlier this year was a
okay.
treat at the Attic. And then I'd love to have him at the festival. Jeffrey Asmus
Uh-huh.
is a favorite, kind of in that sort of category of up and comers. But yeah, I mean, to me, like I wanted to make sure that we had a very diverse festival lineup and have people of color, have women, have LGBT comics. We had trans headliners. We had both young and old comedians, men and women. Not just to like check the box of diversity, but also like everybody loves different kind of comedy, and like everybody wants to go see themselves and who they identify with. No matter who that would be. And I think we did a pretty good job, at least in year one, of making sure that no matter who you are, or what your background is, or what your comedy preference is, like there was somebody there for you.
Because you achieved that, brother. You achieved that for sure. Um, Now, this doesn't have to be specifically for comedians. It could just be for any creative or anybody just listening to this right now. What words of motivation or encouragement would you give to anybody listening to this right now?
um, that's another tough question. I would say, like as much as you have to like grind and work every single day, like not doing that is just as important. I feel like I'm technically, I like the term exennial, being born in 1980. It's sort of like one foot into Gen X and one foot into millennial. And the whole like hustle culture grind mindset kind of came a little bit after me. Like I didn't really have that as much in my 20s. And I feel like a lot of like 20-year-olds are in that mode of where you just got to go, 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 feed the algorithm, do the thing, and it can burn you out so fast. And so I think
Mhm.
taking a step back, looking at like the long-term projects, like pick 4 or 5 like big picture projects you want to work on throughout the year and make sure that you're nurturing those kinds of things, because those are the things that are really going to like get attention and get noticed. Yes, you might get like a clip to go viral on Instagram one day, like because you just play that lottery, you just keep buying the ticket every day and eventually something blows up. But that video is also going to be gone the next day. Like the next person to go viral will go viral the next day. So um, really focusing on your long-term goals. I think a lot of people can easily lose track of that. And so my advice is don't lose track of that.
Message.
Walker, tell people why they should listen to Comedians in Bed.
Because these are really fun conversations to be had. I love a good in-depth back and forth, kind of off the cuff conversation, and the episodes that I've listened to with primarily with local comedians. I saw you had Mike Kaplan on not too long ago. I need to go back and listen to that one because he's going to be, I think, at the Attic in December. Yeah, I mean, they're fun just to kind of get inside people's heads a little bit and hear some of the things you wouldn't hear on stage when you're just watching them tell jokes.
Walker, where can people find you at?
On the internet, I guess. Uh, I'm more active on Instagram, I guess, of the social medias, but I really don't even post a ton of stuff on there. The best place to find me is just go to columbusunderground.com, straight to the website, read what's going on. I try and write something at least once a week, and we've got a whole slew of other great writers to read. So yeah, columbusunderground.com.
And man, make sure you subscribe to Comedians in Bed on our YouTube channel at TYE Comedy. You can also subscribe and listen to, please rate and review wherever you listen to podcasts. We're playing every week, but just in case you miss us, we have weekly clips on our Instagram page at Comedians in Bed Podcast. We go live every Tuesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time. We want to give my man Walker Evans one more shout out for being with us today. If you didn't make last year's festival, or if you didn't submit, go ahead and do so, man. Me personally, I had a good time. I'm not just saying that because I'm from Columbus and I was on it, but I really did have a good time and I learned a lot. Very valuable. Really feel motivated. I've been writing every day ever since. So go ahead and check that out, man. If you see him in town, make sure you say hello and subscribe or be fans of the Columbus Underground. Walker, we want to thank you one more time. Everybody else, we will see you guys next week.